Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. So, for today's episode, we're going to be covering the rest of the craziness that's going down on the Floor of Death. Now, as I have explained before, these episodes are severely large and they could end up taking up a lot more time than normal. It's the reason why my episodes during this particular section are so long. It's kind of like SIU gave us a lot of context to each one of the episodes, unlike where we are right now in the tower where the episodes are much shorter. So bear with me as we go through this. And we kick it off with Evan looking over Garam Jahad as she's in a depressed state because of what she said to Yurik, because she doesn't really like Yurik, and Yurik is madly in love with her. So yeah, that becomes kind of complex. And we see that Yurik is going to go and fight with Hal Joe. So we see Yurik and Haljo know each other. They communicate back and forth a little bit. And then we see that Haljo even threatens to fight Yurik, and Yurik is like, okay, cool, so let's see what you've got. And then we see that things are even more crazy because Yurik can't fight properly right now since only Balm can use Shinsu, so it gets really to the max. At that point we see that he receives a hit to the back, which looks like it just came from Yuri, but it could also have come from Balm. I'm not 100% sure. And we see that Hockney is still helping Balm with avoiding all these attacks from Haljo, which are super powerful and would kill Balm if they did hit him. And we see that Haljo was so upset because the soul stirring ladle was destroyed. And we see that when Haljo had asked to use the soul stirring ladle to escape the place, the leaders of the place, Grandija and Grandisha, charged people to go and take him down, and that's when he asserted that Disha should retire. And after that day, they decided they were going to have a vote against the youngest member of their family and Haljo, and the people out of fear chose the younger member of the Disha family over him. So we see Haljo actually did a lot of good things. He fought for what was right despite the people being too blinded by power of the government to actually stand up to it and when he did this here, he ended up fighting them, overthrowing them, and then they destroyed the very thing he needed to give everybody that freedom. Not him, the opponents did it just to basically ruin it. And we see that Haljo keeps fighting. At this point, we go to Grand Dili, and he's in the area with the regulars, and all of a sudden, he is taking on Kun and the rest of them. At this point, we see that he starts attacking, and then all of a sudden, Rachel starts thinking that she could get a hold of that treasure and use it for herself. So we see that the soul stirring ladle was actually used to control the people of the floor, and that's how it was used. Anybody who wanted freedom had the souls taken from them and transferred around, making sure that they couldn't remember anything. And that's what the Leech Guardians are, the souls of these people who had been wanting freedom turned around with the ladle's power. Then we see Kun activate Anakor against Grandili, and we see that Enderosi uses Bong Bong to escape. We then see that he targets the inner core lighthouse instantly, and he uses his invisible observer to attack it. And then we see Rachel stops Grandili from killing Kun. And for the first time, Rachel actually says something that has some sense. They have a fatalism that is based around destiny. It's the reason why they are doing what they're doing inside the section. And we see that she says that if you believe in destiny, it's not the right way. It's foolish to devote yourself to destiny. You should try and take it into your own hands. And she basically explains to them that they could just hand over the ladle now since the savior is already here. And then we see that Dili decides he's going to kill her as well. And then we see that Yurik takes off that restraining bracelet that he had on his foot, and that is where episode 251 ends. We then enter into episode 252. And we see that Yuri goes crazy and starts attacking Yurik non-stop. And we see that they have to explain what the ankle was. She thought it was a bracelet because he was some kind of criminal. And we see that he pulls out a syringe and he says it has a special solution that was made in Fug to separate Hal Joe from the Red Trissa. Now, this solution is most likely made to separate balm from the needle, from the thorn, so that they can use it for their own purposes. So we see that finally they're deciding they're going to take the fight to Hal Joe, and it's just going to be Balm and Yurik. And Yurik isn't holding back his power; he's going to go full force. And we see that Hal Joe realizes that Yurik is crazy powerful as well. And we see that Yurik reminds Hal Joe of who he was once upon a time, what his dream was. And we see that Hal Joe claims he's lord of this place. He couldn't have gotten smaller since back then, but he's not understanding exactly what Yurik is trying to say. Yurik is trying to tell him that the reason he's smaller is because he lost all of his true ambition, and he became corrupted by the idea of power and the power that he had managed to gain. He fell into a trap that power was everything. So we see that Balm ends up running around with Yurik at this point. And we see that they're going to have an all-out fight that's just going to be Yurik versus Hal Joe, basically. And we see that Yurik is only using 10% of his power when he is fighting Hal Joe. And when he hits him, he creates basically like a crater through the lake instantly with a single hit. And we see that Yurik is still holding back even at 10%. He wonders if he went too light on Hal Joe. And then we see Balm is wondering if that's the real power of Irregular. And we see that he keeps saying that Hal Joe has gotten a lot smaller. And we see that Hal Joe proclaims he's the best and he's grown so much. And then we see Yurik simply snaps his fingers and he basically shoots at him. And we see that Yurik says that even though he's really powerful in this place, his control of Shinsu may be really good, but out there in the tower there are many who can do it. If he stepped outside like he is right now, he'd be slaughtered. Then we see that Balm starts controlling the Shinsu and leads Hal Joe right up to him, and this is also another show of Balm's power. So technically speaking, since Balm can control Shinsu in this level, and we know that Hal Joe is beyond Balm by quite a bit, we know that Balm is within that 5% gap between between Hal Joe and where Yurik started off with his power. So we know that is Balm's maximum power level. And we see why Yurik keeps calling him small, and as he starts running up, he runs straight up to Hal Joe on all the Shinsu that Balm is controlling. And we see that Yurik just hammers away into Hal Joe. We then transfer back to Rachel and Dealey, and the two are still busy arguing. As I said, these episodes are crazy long, and we see that Dealey calls her a fake savior. Now, it is true that she is the fake savior. It is true that she is doing some things that are worthy, like fighting against destiny. But there is something you should know: fighting against destiny and trying to take what other people have are two different things. When you fight destiny, you fight it to a point. You don't try and overwhelm destiny to the point where everything is yours. You only take to the limits to which you can. So yes, when people are looking for destiny and they're looking for someone who is really talented to take their place, you still work at it. You still work hard to get advancements. You still want to keep going ahead. And then when the person who is destined to go further above you comes in, they take over your spot. They surpass you, and that is all that there is for you. And we see that Dealey attacks Rachel at the end of it with his observer. That's where 252 ends, and we end up on 253. So we see that Rachel is poisoned by the observer. And we see that Wari Yun escapes from everybody at that moment while the two are fighting. And then we swap back to Hal Joe and Yurik. Sorry. Now, there's one thing that you should understand at this point. Yurik is showing us what the power of an irregular is like. And understand that the Red Trissa is somewhere around the 10% mark of his power. So this is where an administrator's power basically will phase in, somewhere between 10 to 50% of Yurik's power. Balm at this point is pretty powerful, and he pretty much proves that he's worthy of this level of power, right? So Balm is in this range as well. He's already at 5% of a high ranker, which is crazy. And honestly, we already know that 1,000 rankers make it like a worthwhile challenge for Yurik. So we know that at this point, if Balm can equal 1%, is equal to 10 rankers. And that's just around the real level of Balm's full out power. If he goes totally without controlling anything, if he goes out and rampages, that is where Balm's power would appear to be. So we see the Red Trissa threatens Yurik at this point, and then we see the Red Trissa is basically saying that Yurik helped it grow into quite a powerful being. It was reliving a cycle of life and death over and over again, just eating bugs. But with being part of Hal Joe, it became much more powerful, and it managed to weasel its way into his thoughts and become more powerful by preying on his weaker sides, all of his weaknesses. And we see that the Red Dressa is actually the administrator. It's just a small piece of the power. As far as it is right now, just about 10%. So we see that the Red Dressa starts getting ready to fire at Yurik, and it fires an attack. And we see that its attack is like nothing to Yurik. So Yurik at 10% is far more powerful than the Red Dressa. We know that Bam is also in the same level of power in between this power, and his power with Shinsu is way higher than this here. He can surpass an administrator, plus he has a thorn with him that simply surpasses this level of power. And then we see that Yurik goes on an attacking spree with the Red Dressa, and the Red Dressa hammers him with a heavy punch. And he keeps attacking him and blasting him around. And then we see that Bam is worried about Yurik for a few seconds as he's being attacked. And then we see that the Red Dressa basically threatens Bam at this point, that he's going to kill all his companions by sucking up all the Shinsu and making them die from the lack of air. And we see that Yurik already deployed the serum that he had on him into Helljo. And we see Bam just expand his power all of a sudden. Now remember, the Red Dressa is definitely greater than 5% of Yurik's power. Otherwise, you'd never have needed to take off that bracelet. And we see that the Red Dressa says that he has the power of an administrator. He has a colossal soul. And so we see that Yurik is still fine, and he climbs up to the Red Dressa and he tells it that it's been injected already. How does it feel? And that the drug is separating him from Helljo. And we see that Yurik only allowed the Red Dressa to hit him so that it would be distracted and wouldn't stop the injection. At this point, we see that Yurik hits the Red Dressa really hard and forces it to start separating from Joe. And at that point, we see what the Red Dressa really looks like. We see that the power of the Red Dressa is like nothing to Yurik at this point, and we get a hint at how powerful Jahad and the other irregulars are at this point. And we see that Yurik also gives a little message. Humans don't need power that eats away at their ideals. And then we see that he hits the Red Dressa in the last moment and it starts to break apart. And that is where episode 253 ends, and we go to episode 254. Now you should realize that Bam is getting a lot of crazy powers already to this point, and he's going even more crazy. We then see Helljo falls out from the Red Dressa, and we see that it starts doing something crazy and gathering Shinsu. And we see that Yurik basically tells Balm, if that thing manages to blow up, it'll kill everybody here. And we see that he tells Balm all he has to do is make a little crack so Yurik can enter and attack the Trissa. And then we see Balm starts to unleash a little bit of power, and he's looking up and he decides he's going to combine the power of a black hole sphere with the power of the thorn, and he hopes that that will make a crack, and he fires it off at the explosion that's about to happen. And then we see that Beta can still move around, so he grabs everybody and he starts moving around. We see that Wari Yun is already heading up to the point where she needed to be with Grandisha as he is captive. We see that the soul stirring ladle is handed over to Wari Yun, and the other Red Witch sets him free. And then we see that Beta arrives right behind them. And we see that Wari Yun says if you believe there's a God who's going to forgive you for all you've done here on this floor, he hasn't come. And then we see that Wari Yun says, only if you believe that really is your destiny, then so be it. Now, Wari Yun knows something about destiny and the way that it is. You see, a lot of people have fake destinies, right? It's something that you have to understand. And she's basically outlining that they believe in a fake destiny. They want the destiny to be perfect the way they believe it would be. If they just follow destiny as it should be, everything was over right now the moment Balm arrived on this floor. And then we see that they start heading out, and we see that we get back to Balm as he's trying to use the Shinsu Black Hole Sphere, and he finally makes a crack in the power that Red Trissa is trying to gather to destroy the entire floor. Then we see Yurik go ahead and he also uses his irregular type Shinsu power. And we see that there's a huge explosion at that moment. And in a small little flash, we see something enters into Balm. And we see that Yurik is wondering why in the world did Balm unite with the Red Trissa as well. Now, understand that Balm is just absorbing powers like crazy. And then we see that Yurik is basically inviting Balm to join Willa Song. Now, understand that being invited to join Willa Song as a regular isn't something minor. You have to have some type of skill, you have to show some kind of real big potential to be able to join them at that level. Remember what they put Liroro through just to join, and this is Balm who's a regular. And then we see that White is in the spirit room with all the souls in front of him. And we see that White says that Balm will soon see his true form as he is about to absorb it. That's where 254 ends. Now, there's a lot to actually go through as this part is now going to get into another crazy fight. Something where we get to taste just how powerful Balm is. So we see that there's a spell that's really complex, holding the souls in place. And White says he'll just write over the spell and he'll absorb all the souls himself. So that's what he decides to do. So we see that Yurik actually tells Balm something really important. Wula Yuksong accepts everybody. Members of Fug, members of a 10 grade family, members of Jahad, they're all welcome to join. They just have to be willing to be part of them. Then we see Kun is talking to Balm over his pocket. And we see Hockney is looking over Haljo. And we see that he goes up to him, and we then see Balm heads over to Kun, and they're about to get the whole report on what's going down. And we see that when Yurik introduces himself, Enderosi, Kun, Boro, and Sachi are all totally shocked to see who he is. And then we see that the bad rumors about Yurik start coming out. And we see that Yurik has a very bad reputation. His simple ideas and simple things that he said, like joining Wula Yuksong, gets pulled out of context and he's made to look like a real bad guy. And we see that Yurik runs away from Yuri instantly. And we see Kun is like, looks like we're involved in something big again, because every time Balm gets involved in something, it goes crazy out of control. Regulars and rankers put together in an arena, things like that, things just go totally out of whack. Then we see that Kun breaks the news that Rachel was attacked, and they see Rachel is dying. We see that Iraday managed to slow her power, slow the poison by putting her in a deep type of sleep. But her life is in danger, and she will die if the shit keeps up. And we see that Waryun says that she's had a bad feeling for a while. And we see Hockney take his eyes away from Haljo. And then we see that Haljo remembers that he lost to Yurik Mizuno. And then we see that without the Red Dressa, he's not even a match for Hockney, who just slashes him away. And we see that Hockney beats him down instantly. And we see that he tells him to wake up and start living a better life. He still can. We then see that some of Haljo's minions show up, and they're calling him Master Joe. And we see that Haljo is basically saying that he doesn't know who they are. And then we see that Yurik shows up, and he basically says that Haljo is so totally pathetic without his power now. And then we see Haljo ask him, why is he here? Why did he show up now? When he was suffering, he wasn't here to help him, but he took away the power that he needed. And we see that he says you can't just give and take things away. It's a very cruel thing to do. And that is kind of true. You see, we give people power, we take it away. That's how a lot of the things in this world work. And Yurik basically did something really cruel to a person. And then we see that Yurik tells Aljo he can achieve everything that he did if he starts again. And we see that if a person loses power, they can become really, really miserable. We see that Aljo is crying a lot. And then all of a sudden, we see that Aljo starts screaming help. And all of a sudden, all of the immortals in the area just lose their souls because White has absorbed all of their souls into himself. And we see that Karaka tricked the members of this floor to get White back to his power, and we see White has his power restored at that moment. And we see that Yurik is wondering what in the world happened. So yeah, that is how things go down at this point. That's where 255 ends. At this point, we see that White and Karaka are speaking, and they decide that they need to go and do something else instead of fighting Yurik Mizuno. And we see that Karaka basically says White should return to the train, find his last clone, and become whole again so that he doesn't have to worry about leaving the train anymore, instead of trying to fight Yurik Mizuno. And then we see that Yurik is really angry at whoever it was from Pug and whatever they did. And then we see that they mention that something happened in the spirit room. And we see that they mention that Karaka was heading over to the spirit room. And we see that everybody is now wondering what they're going to do. They're going to head to the spirit room, and there's a high chance that Karaka is there. And then we see that Bam decides to follow after the Rankers and chase after Karaka and White. And they finally get to the room. And we see that Yurik is really upset because it seems like Karaka has also got his... they've already escaped. We see Huariyun enter in, and she says that there's a way that they can enter and leave here. A secret way from Fug. And then we see that Yurik heads on the secret path with Huariyun. We then see that White and Karaka took a different path because they knew that Huariyun was here. And Karaka was actually surprised. He thought that White would go crazy and insist on fighting Yurik. And we see that White says that Karaka is quite different. He's a cautious type. He's not like the other Slayers. and it seems like they feel like they're going to be able to maintain a relationship with each other. We then see that they pass the gatekeeper, and we see that the gatekeeper's defenses keep going even without him having a soul. And we see that an attack is launched at White, and we see that White attacks and destroys the gatekeeper. And as he's running, we see that he starts heading towards a hole, and then all of a sudden and we see that White actually has a bit of a conscience. He's still thinking about Rachel and the others on his team who he left behind. And as he's heading up the hole, all of a sudden we see that he can't move his body, as if he is being pressed down by some kind of massive pressure. And we then see Pobadao Gustang as he shows up. We then swap to Garam, who's holding Evan in a block of ice, and we see that she's basically threatening Evan to keep his mouth shut. And then we see that Evan says that he won't tell Jahad. Even above being part of the Jahad family, guides first and foremost wouldn't mess up with the path of someone who is in the tower, because that there would cause great problems. And we see that Evan doesn't want to stir up any trouble with Yurik because he's afraid of him. And we see that Evan asks who in the world has helped Garam so far. And then we see that Garam says that one of the most powerful people in the tower has been helping them with all of this, and that's how it's been for a long time. He helped her escape, and he is even responsible for cutting this place off from the outside world. And we see that she says there are only 10 people in the tower who are capable of that, besides Jahad. And we see that Evan realizes it's one of the 10 great family leaders. At this point, we go back to Pobadao Gustang as he is walking over White, and he's just suppressing him totally like a little bug. And he literally calls White a little bug. And from that point, we see that's where it ends, where they say one of the 10 great family leaders. So we'll head on to episode 257. And we see that Garam says that Evan shouldn't look any further into this. It's not a place for him to know. And we see that whoever has been helping may have been plotting a lot of stuff in the background. And then we see Pobadao Gustang as he's basically floating over Karaka and White. And we see him point out to White and say, "So you stole the souls." And then we see that Gustang actually says that White already paid a price. And he says that he doesn't mind if White tries to go past him. And at that point we see that Yurik and Wariyun end up at the last possible part of that passage that they were going through, and they still haven't made it back to the train completely. We then see that Yuri and Rossi are traveling together, basically because We then see that White just ends up being totally squashed. And we see that But Augustine explains the souls that were stored in the spirit room can't leave this place. That is the price for their immortality. And by absorbing that spell and not breaking it apart and then doing it, he's now cursed, so he can't leave this place. And we see that to Gustang, the power that he has is just a little bit of power. And we see that he says that just for that little bit of power now you can't leave, you little bug. And we see that he tries to leave again. Now this is something which may indicate what we're going to see soon in Tower of God when Tramurai and Bam have a go at it. Bam may have a little bit of power and he may be able to fight against him, but Tramurai is definitely going to squish him. Then we see White is trying all he can to get out of here. And then we see Gustang takes away the souls from White in an instant, in a single little push, and he pulls it out of him. And then all of a sudden we see Yurik shows up through a technique called spatial distortion, and we see that he asks Gustang what is he doing here. And then we see that Yurik and Gustang have a little talk. I'll actually get into the nitty-gritty of what is being said. And basically he says that these are little souls. They're small people. They're nothing next to them. And we see that he tells Yurik that everything that he does with his friends in Walayak Song is just a deception, because they little minnows, and there's only 11 people in the tower who can actually stand with him. And we see that Pope Augustine says that he's going to put the souls back anyway. And then we see that basically Yurik has a habit of being a total monster with the 10 great families, because he can obliterate them, and the 10 warriors don't really stand a chance against him. And we see that Pope Augustine says that there may be one other in the tower who's worthy of being on the same rank as the irregulars, and that is Bam, as he looks down at him. And we see that he says, "Welcome, son of Alan." And this is the end of it. Pope Augustine knew Alan and most probably knew a son. And when he says, "Welcome, son of Alan," that's the end of it. We know 100% that this is the way. And we see that Pope Augustine is here actually as well on a second task. He wants to ask Bam for a favor. We then get a quick snippet to Rak, who is in another place, and we see that he says he's watching for his prey, and that's where 257 ends. So let's get on to episode 258. We're about to have yet another crazy adventure following this. We'll have a little intermission basically between the heaviness, and then we'll end up into the hidden floor or another hell floor on its own, basically. So yeah, we're going to get there soon. So we start off with Rock. And we see that Rock has kept on failing to defeat an enemy where he is right now. And then we see that all the souls are being returned to life on the floor of death. We see that Disha, Li, Dija, everybody is returning to life. Even see Haljo returns to life. And then Yurik goes to talk to Haljo while Gusteng is talking to Bam. And we see that Gusteng says that this isn't really a favor, he just wants to test Bam a little bit. And we see that Gusteng has actually left something on Yuri's mind when he called Bam son of Alan. And we see that Alan actually got along with everybody, and Gusteng didn't get along with everybody, and he was very good friends with her. And we see that Gusteng didn't want to talk about V. And we see that Gusteng says that V was the absolute worst person he ever met. Right, so there's definitely something that Gusteng and V didn't get along with, and there's a whole lot of stuff which is there which we still need to find out. So far, the only person who's been revealed from Bam's parents is Alan, and when the V side of things come out, we're going to see all of the good things and bad things about him surface very quickly. And then we see that Bam has Gusteng help Rachel. He just looks at Rachel, and basically she's instantly cured the moment that happens. And we see that Yura was actually spying on whatever was going on. At that very moment, we see that Gusteng destroys their spying tech because he doesn't want to be spied on. And we see that Gusteng heals her just by looking at her. Then we see Haljo and Yurik have a conversation, and basically Yurik says that he can get Gusteng to get him out of here, and he can be a regular in the tower. And we see that Haljo tells Yurik to just leave him. He doesn't want the freedom that he can get him. And then we go back to the spirit room with Gusteng and Bam, and we see that they're standing over the 3 flows of water over the last piece of the thorn. And we see that Gusteng says if Bam does a favor for him, he'll break the seal on the thorn for him. And we see that he gives a little bit of a situation, and he says that there's something that Jahad hid in the tower. It's hidden in a place that rankers can't go to, so it's a regular area, and regulars won't be able to get it either. You'd have to be an irregular to get it, and you would have to be an irregular who hasn't yet become a ranker, but it's a very dangerous place to go. And we see that he calls it the hidden floor. It's a place that doesn't really exist, it's just a virtual world, and that it's like an artificial intelligence, and it's a place where everybody who passes the train imprints a piece of their data. We see that him being an irregular means that he has certain privileges, like he can talk about the floor without having his memory erased, but anybody else can't. And we see that once a person becomes a ranker, they can never again enter the hidden floor, and all that remains on the hidden floor is their data. And we see that once you have cleared the train, you are not able to remove things from there. So you'd have to be able to get onto the train, and before it reaches the final stop, get into the hidden floor, take out items from the hidden floor, and that's the only way to get things out of there, because any other way is impossible. So you have to be somebody who isn't of a crazy level prepared. And we see that Gustang had one of the master keys that you can use to enter that floor, and he hands it over to Baum to basically take it on. And we see that the whole thing that is going to really test Baum in there is the person that Jahad trusts most, the doctor that runs the hidden floor, the doctor of young Jahad. So we see that's where episode 258 ends. I know this is another droning on long episode. It's really difficult to finish these, but the episodes are about to come down in size rapidly for a little bit, and then we're going to get the end of the season all the way till the hidden floor ends. I think it's about 40 episodes. Once the hidden floor ends and we get the final station, the comic just becomes a lot shorter. It starts compressing down rapidly, and everything is a lot easier to go through at that point. So hopefully by then things will be fun. So we see Gustang and Baum are talking on the start of this episode, and he basically asks Baum if he's going to accept the offer. And we see that Baum asks, since Gustang is a part of the spell that's holding the Floor of Death together, he asks if Gustang would release the spell. And we see that he explains something to Baum, and that the actions that you take can have consequences beyond your regular. As he says, if you remove that, you're going to cause problems for the residents of this place. Then you're going to make Garam's secret that is here spread to the rest of the tower. You're also going to end up with another set of problems in this place with people who don't agree with being mortal. And we see that the residents of the place actually wanted to keep their immortality. And we see that his idea would infringe on them, and it's because it's something which seems good but isn't good in its entirety. He hasn't yet seen all the results and everything that would come of his action. Then we see that Karaka decides to take the rest of the regulars with him and get back onto the train. And then we see that Enderossi hears that Garam is here, and she says that she really wants to meet her. And then we see that she goes along with the Bong Bong and she follows Yuri. And then we see that Anak was actually brought up by Garam, so that's a little bit of a hint from the past. And we see that they talk to each other for a few seconds. We see that Enderossi wanted to see what happened to Garam for losing her position. She wanted to see if Garam was happy. And she says she doesn't look very happy, but she doesn't look unhappy either. And we see that she's thinking of also leaving the system of being a princess as well. She might want to break the rules. And then we see that Garam says, "Do you have feelings for Viol?" And we see that she basically tells Enderossi if she loves Bam for the wrong reason, it may cause problems for both of them, and they'll both end up getting hurt. So she should think very hard and carefully about the way she feels. And then we see that Gustang and Yurik have a little conversation. And we see that Gustang is going to erase everybody's memory, and he asks Yurik if he should spare Hal Joe, basically. And we see that he says no, erase it as well. And he says that fish trapped in a bowl are happier when they don't know there's a vast sea out there. And then we see that everybody is about to leave. We see Mata and Hockney are going to have their little farewell. And we see that Garam calls him Jovial Grace. At this point, it seems like Bam is accepting that name more because he realizes it is his real name. And we see that Hockney and Mata have their farewell. And we see that Mata congratulates him on having friends, and he basically says that he doesn't want to leave. And then we see that the reality is he's always wanted to follow him, he's just been too scared to leave. And then we see that Yurik transports the regulars back out towards the train. And we see that Baum decides at this moment that someday he will be back here on the floor of death. And we see that at that same moment, Gustang uses his power, erasing everybody's memories. And we see that the only reason that Mata met Hockney was he kept circling the spot where he left Hockney, hoping that one day he would return back. And this is where the floor of death ends. We then get Karaka appearing back on the train in the place where the hidden floor door is. It's a place that the rankers can't enter because it's subject to different rules from the rest of the train. And then we see that Rak says he can feel it, the turtles are coming at the end of that. That's where 249 ends. So yeah, let me just hit 260. I know this is a crazy long episode. Then we see that Wulayuk Song's ship is near where Baum is. We see that Yurik explains that they found two of his friends, Iwa and Danwa, and that they are climbing the tower again, trying to catch up with them. And then he sees that they hadn't found Rak. They haven't found Rak. And we see that Kun reassures Baum that there's no way the alligator could have gotten killed. And we see that Yurik asks Baum if he's from the outside. And we see that he decides it's fine to share it with Yurik that he is an irregular. And we see that Baum says he doesn't know where he's from. He was in a cave all the time from the time he was born. It was a dark place. He doesn't know much about it. And we see that Yurik says that Baum shouldn't worry about what anybody asks. The only thing that matters is that Baum doesn't lose himself. And then we see that Yurik basically tells Yuri not to interfere too much with the kids and that he shouldn't be picking on them. And then we see that everybody is off on their way. And we see that Yurik basically says he'll meet the boy again one day in a higher place. So that's basically hinting that he knows that him and Baum have a future where they're going to meet. It's basically a little tease from SIU for us. And we see that Yurik actually forgot to tell Baum something, and we find out what it is later. And then we see that Karaka took Wagnan and Miseng with him as hostages. Then we see that Enderossi is acting really cold towards everyone and she just leaves. And then we see Yuri gives Baum a little bit of motivation, considering that he most probably heard a lot of bad things. And then we see that Bam wants to talk to Kun for a little bit, and we see that he explains that he has the master key and that he needs to go to the floor of death. And we see that he talks to Poirot about it, and then we see that Poirot pulls out a massive guide, and he says that it's been lost for a long time, the Room of Time Past. It's located in one of the carts, and it can only be opened by the master key at a particular time. We then see that Iriday shows up, and she goes to Barrow Barrow. And we see that Barrow Barrow asks what happened, and Iriday says she was just sleeping the whole time, and she's gonna go and sleep some more. We then see that Iriday is chatting on her device, and she's talking to somebody on Emily, and all we see are the messages that she's receiving. It goes, "Are you sure? Alright, I'll deal with it as soon as I find the item." So we see that Kun is considerate of what would happen to Borrow and Sach's data if they go and interfere with this. So we see that they have to go in there before they reach the last station. And we see that Bam already got the second Thorn fragment. And we see that Bam is holding a lot of guilt over the second Thorn fragment, and he's comprehending a lot of things over it. I'll explain it in a bit after this chapters are done. And we see that Bam now has the power of the administrator. That's the power he got from the Red Drissa. And we see that he has the Red Drissa within him, so he has yet another incredible power at his disposal. We then see that Hockney is reunited with his eyes. And we see that the waterfall wasn't the place where the last piece of his picture was. And we see that Pobedau Gustang gives us a bit of a hint of what Rachel is. She's a pawn for somebody who is a big player. Now, we understand a very little, a very small part about the reality. So we know that Rachel is a pawn for some other purpose. So she's gotten some kind of power. He gave a gift to her. And we know that he gave the thorn to Bam. So we know that Bam is actually the chosen one. And then we see that she has one of the treasures that Gustang had, the stingray. And we see that once again everything in the tower is focused on Bam and Rachel. So let me try and wrap up everything that happened here in this crazy episode. To be honest, like I'm saying, each one of these episodes is like 10 episodes all at once, so I miss out a ton when it comes to this section. If you are reading through the book, through the comics, this is one of the sections where you have to look at every single panel. Every single panel holds some small detail. Most of them are fights, and they do show a little bit of detail here and there, but they hold information, so you'd have to come back and read it all. So let's go back to the start with the Hal Joe and Yurik fight. Now, I did explain a lot about the power leveling and how we were getting a hint of how far Bam is along the way of his progress. So Bam is not at regular level, right? You absolutely understand that he's not at regular level. He can break spells of a high level that are well beyond D or even Ranker class individuals. So yeah, we get that first thing. Balm is high Ranker level. The next thing we get from the whole hint of how things were going with Balm is his Shinsu control skill is Ranker plus level. He's at least advanced Ranker with that type of power, possibly high Ranker within the Shinsu control skills that he has. He may not understand how to fight at a Ranker's level yet, but he definitely has that much of power. The next thing is that he has powers that supersede an Administrator, so Administrator stepping in will not interfere with Balm anyway in the tower thanks to the Thorn. He also has Shinsu Black Hole Sphere, which is an irregular power, which is already totally crazy. So yeah, we found that out. We then find out that Yurik is so much more powerful. He's definitely more powerful than an Administrator, and that makes us wonder just how crazy powerful Enryu is. So we do know that Yurik is ranked number 4, Jahad is ranked number 3. If Yurik and Jahad have a fight, we'll find out who is stronger between the two. I suspect we will get that somewhere near the end of the entire series when things get really, really messy. Okay, the next thing to think about with all of this craziness is the way that fight ends. The fact that they separated the two and did it is because Haljo was immortal on the floor, so trying to kill him was almost impossible. The only person who could kill him was Balm. If Balm had used his powers against him, it would have been the end of Haljo, and it would have separated the Trissa from him instantly. That is one of the things that Balm could have done, but fortunately Balm didn't do it. It allowed Yurik to learn a lesson about forcing people to go beyond their limits, and he learned that he is much greater than the others around him. He learned a little bit of a lesson from Gustang at that point. We also see that Gustang is a very calculated individual, and he uses logic a lot more than anybody else. We also get a hint that there's something that B did that was very, very evil. Right, we get that hint from Gustang. We know that Gustang isn't 100% pure, innocent, good because of the way that he helped Rachel. And we get all of these hints from what is being done at that point. We then get White stealing the soul to see that White pays for his greed. He was trapped again. He was trapped in a place that was worse than the Hell Train this time, a place where he wouldn't ever have a chance of becoming whole again. That's how bad it was. And the moment the train leaves, and the contract dissipates, he'd be immortal and stuck there, while his other clone would disappear and his ability to have freedom outside of there would be gone for good. So had that happened, he would have been punished worse. Gustang actually helped him by removing the souls from him and letting him out. So yeah, that's the whole thing on that part. Then we had Karaka and his part in this whole story, taking hostages and playing more of that stupid game. The whole thing with Karaka is Karaka has been a bad guy to Balm for a lot of the story. He's all of a sudden going to have a massive change at the end of this year when the last station arc unfolds, and then we're going to see a much bigger story unfold between Karaka and Balm moving up the tower in season 3. So yes, there is a lot more to learn, and Balm even educates Karaka, and he basically outranks Karaka before he's even done with the events of the war in season 3. So Karaka is above Balm, then Balm is well above Karaka, he's at White level, then he supersedes White level by another crazy, ridiculous jump of power, and he's just going to keep getting more crazy. So we know that White is just a little bit of power, right? So he's maybe about 10% or 20% of the power of any regular. And we know that against someone like Gustang, he didn't have a chance at all because of their immortality. But we know that Balm is going to have to fight Tramurai, and we know that he's already beaten the power that White holds, so he's top 50 levels in power, and we know that Balm is going to gain more power somehow and rank up all the way. Remember, he has 2 thorns to ignite. With 2 thorns ignited, the power of the souls is most probably at least double or triple the power of White, and with the Black March in his control, he most probably could put up a good fight, at least 1/3 of the power of an irregular. And I'm suspecting that he is going to kill Tramurai. Okay, not kill. I suspect that he's going to fight Tramurai and put up a very good fight, and maybe it'll be like a draw conclusion where he kills Tramurai and Tramurai kills him, and then we're going to get Enryu showing up and saving him at the end of this, because it has to be something ridiculous, something so insane that it shakes up the entire tower and changes the whole world to a new a new reality starting from that point. Wars will just break out non-stop. So yeah, we'll be moving up on the fastest climb of the tower. Remember, most of your comics have this big growth phase for the characters. They grow for about 60, 70, maybe even 100 episodes, and then they start coming into their main power, and then they get these small little jumps that just jump them to crazy levels. Think about it with Dragon Ball Z. Goku was already the most powerful in terms of mankind. He spent 100 episodes training basically to reach the level of Frieza, and then all of a sudden he supersedes Frieza with Super Saiyan. Similarly, same thing with Bam. Bam basically went all the way from regular person and he hit Super Saiyan in the last station arc. Now when he's entering into the next stage, when he beats White, he just did that massive power up that you get all of a sudden out of nowhere, and he still hasn't completed it, so he's going to go on to his next level. So he's about to reach his Frieza level for the tower. He's close to it. He's halfway through his climb, his high rank level. So yeah, we're gonna see a lot of crazy things coming from Bam in the future. So I hope that you all do enjoy, and I will catch you all in the next one. I know there isn't much of a reference to all the Andrew stuff that people would want, but I have covered him in the past, and there is a lot of videos here in the tower section for me. These are some of the most crazy videos, and I hope that you all do enjoy. So see you all in the next one.